Hi everybody, welcome to our virtual exhibition walkthrough of Life on Earth, Superweed, Superpredator, Superbloom. We're joined in the gallery today with artist and curator Hannah Cole, who organized this exhibition. Hannah lives here in Asheville. She studied at Yale University and Boston University. Her work can currently be seen in this exhibition as well as front burner at the North Carolina Museum of Art in Raleigh. Her work she's had a solo show here at the gallery in the summer of 2019, as well as the Turchin Center for Art in Boone, North Carolina in 2018. She's exhibited widely in places such as the Drawing Center in New York City, University of Maine Museum of Art, and Boston University, among others. In addition to being an artist and a curator, Hannah is also a writer for Hyperallergic, and she has a tax firm for creatives called Sunlight Tax. Welcome, Hannah.
Hi, thanks so much for having me here.
So you came to me with this idea for this exhibition in the summer, early this summer. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea and how you conceptualized the premise of this show?
Sure. So it came about from a conversation I had with another artist in the show, Kirsten Stolle. She and I are, because we both live in town and we have a lot in common, we're really good friends, and we were talking. Her work deals with Monsanto and corporate language, and my work is about weeds. So we're standing here by one of my paintings called Persists, Takes Up Space, Turns Towards Light. Occasionally I forget my own titles. And so I've been working with the subject of weeds ever since I moved to Asheville. I've tended to do sort of close-ups of urban landscapes, and when I moved here from New York City, the thing that struck me so much in Asheville was the green. And so I went out and bought 8 tubes of green. It was my first trip to the art store when I got here. So weeds have kind of become my symbol, and I'm thinking about them metaphorically as a kind of nature that is not approved of. And that they become a symbol of a lot of other things. Immigrants, women, people of color, things that are sort of told they don't belong in the normal space, in the normal sphere. So Kirsten sent me a definition. She was doing research for her work about corporate languaging. She sent me a definition of a weed from Bayer Monsanto. And this language was really incredible to me because it read like a Stephen Miller anti-immigration speech. It was really dark. It talked about undesirable and foreign invaders and things like that. And I just saw that definition that she had sent me and I was like, oh my God, that's a show. So Kirsten and I talked about it a little bit, and it just that was the nub of it. Because to me, it brought in this element of language to an idea that I've been working on in my work. It also connected my work with Kirsten's, and I was just thinking about, as you know, over the summer, not that this hasn't been going on forever, but we have had this national reckoning over race and the treatment of Black Americans in particular. And so kind of thinking through those issues myself, and it felt like a zeitgeist moment of the nation thinking about those things. It felt like there were these threads there between race and weeds, both of which have no basis in science, yet are, kind of thrown around like they're real, like they are scientific. So I liked that juxtaposition of race and weeds, and then I thought that this is a way to kind of expand this idea out into language and also into nature. To talk about fitting in, belonging, and how language can do this thing of bringing you close or pushing you away. So that was kind of the origin.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the work in the show. We'll do a little walkthrough, and Hannah and I will just talk about the pieces and why she included them and how she came about finding some of the artists. So some that I've known and some I had not been familiar with, which is always exciting. Do you want to start with your piece?
Sure, I would love to. So this is a fairly good representation of the kind of work that I'm making at the moment. It's a weed poking through that has grown through a fence. And I love, capturing this moment of where it's filled with light and it's really beautiful. So to me, I'm always interested in finding beauty where others see ugliness, which is why weeds are one of my favorite symbols. And I made this, and the title, Persists, Takes Up Space, Turns to Light, is to me kind of twisting like this idea of an unwanted weed that somebody's gonna come by and hack off with a weed whacker. It's like, this thing is thriving. This thing doesn't care who thinks it's beautiful. It is reaching towards the light. So to me, it's this really positive symbol.
And this type of work was in Hannah's solo show. It was all about the persistence of weeds, and the title was Turn to Light, which was quite fitting, and it was a gorgeous show, which you can see on the website.
Thank you. I also love the word persist because of Elizabeth Warren. So she turned that word into a little trigger word for me.
So let's walk down to Kirsten's pieces.
Yeah. So Kirsten, we were having this conversation that started the idea for the show, and what I love about Kirsten's work is how she takes the words from corporate annual reports and from their propaganda, and she kind of recontextualizes the words and lays it on top of images that kind of show more of the real story. So this is, do you want to talk about the...
This one is, this is a series that Kirsten did called Buy the 10, which was all about corporate greenwashing and their slogans to get you to buy their product even if they are pulling the wool over your eyes. So this one is called Feed, and this was, I think, the photograph is a chemical plant in Montreal, which was a big, huge fire that was burning at the Monsanto chemical plant, I think in 1966. So she took some archival pigment prints of chemical plants, and then she silk screened these propaganda slogans from Monsanto on top of it. So of course we have the second one, which is we pledge to be part of the solution, which is interesting because I think we all know they're probably part of the problem. So this is indicative of what Kirsten does in a large portion of her work, not all of it, but a large part. So this is a great body of work. Let's go talk about Christina's piece.
Great.
So I'll talk about Christina's because this was an edition that I had because we were kind of lacking the sort of Latino voice aspect in this exhibition, which was very important. Christina Colon Munoz is a very young artist at Western Carolina University. She is actually just getting her BFA now. And this piece is called Sueño Americano, American Dream, and she slip cast in porcelain 3 milk jugs, which represent sort of the disposability of immigration in Trump's zero tolerance immigration policy. So what she's done is screen printed on each milk carton a deposition from a member of a family that was separated by these atrocious policies that were brought about. She used the milk carton, again, because of the disposability, but it also kind of harkens back to my childhood, where you'd see missing people on milk on the side of a milk carton. So a very strong, very powerful voice from such a young person. Yeah.
It is, and I just love how they seem like garbage and like cast up, but they're so beautifully made out of this precious material. It's got this real kind of tension in it, just formally. I love it.
It's beautiful. And this is actually now in the collection of Western Carolina University, which is really exciting for such a young artist.
Yeah, she's really talented.
She is. And let's talk about Sachiko's work.
Yes. So this piece is by Sachiko Akiyama. It is called Bird by Bird. Sachiko is based in New Hampshire, and I have admired her work for so long, and I met her finally after I was already an admirer when we were in a critique group together. And her work has a lot of symbolism in it. It has a lot of kind of almost iconographic quality. I happen to know that she looks at a lot of Egyptian funerary work. So it has this kind of solid, almost religious, spiritual kind of quality. That is something I've always loved about her work. And a lot of her work deals with themes of home, finding home. She had a show titled On Finding Home. And she uses a lot of different symbols. Here we've got a symbol of a boat, kind of making reference to a voyage or to immigration. And also the symbol of the bird, which, and we'll see more birds from Saatchi
We will.
in this show. But birds migrate, and this is one of the kind of themes of her work. So this piece I just find so strong and striking, and I love the way it calls in other art historical elements like the Gothic arch and the niche in the wall. Meanwhile, it's also the artist's father. And there is a personal element of her parents coming to the United States from Japan.
And I love the birds, how they come up and around the figure and then out the side, which has cast this gorgeous reflection on the white wall. So quite stunning. So we'll go around the corner and see more of Saatchi's work, as well as Ramiro Gomez.
Fabulous. So this is Sachiko's work as well. This is, it's an image of herself and her sister. And I think of Saatchi's work in this show as kind of a high point. A lot of the show is about man-made divisions and then how nature transcends them. So to me, she is calling in all this imagery of nature. Here it's the mountains and sort of man's relationship to nature. So I just really love this piece. It's I guess I want you to have your own reaction to it and not me tell you what, but I think it is, it speaks to me. I find it moving.
And again, she brought family into it because her sister is part of this piece as well, which is another lovely piece that connects to her father in the boat. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
And behind you, we have another piece of Sachiko's, which is migratory birds, which we'll see a little bit more of here in a few seconds. But this is a woodblock print of Sachiko's of migratory birds. And I know that Saatchi said that most migratory birds, they don't care who they migrate with, they all migrate. Is that correct?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So we see different types of birds in this woodblock print, which again brings that nature and immigration into play.
Yeah, just a sense of home and belonging, and a kind of, I think also, in Saatchi's work, you're seeing kind of home, a very expanded idea of home. What is home? Yeah, I love it. I also love, just on a technical level, the connection with the wood, because I think if anybody knows Saatchi's work historically, she has sort of been a sculptor in wood, but she has, in the last 5 years, radically expanded her materials outward. But I love how the print is actually a woodblock print, so it has this wood carving element, even when it is not
and this one is lovely, because this is wood and clay. So she's working with clay and ceramics now as well, I believe.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and there's all the mountains behind, which are a part of the piece, are also multiple materials. So there's wooden mountains and resin and cement. So it's just bringing all these different kind of elements together. So.
And this piece is by Ramiro Gomez, and he's bringing another of the Latinx voice on immigration to the show. Most of his work, he deals with the unseen people, like the gardeners, the housekeepers, the nannies, that take care of all the pristine houses in Los Angeles. So in this series, what he's done is painted figures onto high-end magazine advertisements. So this one happens to be a Dyson vacuum cleaner, and he's painted the housekeeper into it. Kind of, again, bringing the unseen immigrant worker into our reality, back into the forefront of our mind.
So this piece is by Antoine Williams. I learned about Antoine's work because he and I are together in the show Front Burner at the North Carolina Museum of Art right now. So when I was in that show in Raleigh, there is a piece from this series, which is the Superpredator series. And I just had such a reaction looking at it because it's so beautiful, and I was really attracted to looking up close at it. It's like pulls me in, but it also has this quality of being like skin in an eerie, a little bit frightening way. And then the title is kind of the kicker for this piece. So the title of this one is Portrait of a Superpredator Who No One Believes, So They Said She Was Talking Out the Side of Her Neck. In Antoine's work in this series, the titles have so much impact. It kind of like, to me, like shifts the way you view the work. So I love that word. I mean, I hate the word, but the word Superpredator is so loaded. But then the other side of the title has this like human quality and kind of like brings the other side of it in. So I really, really love that use of language as well as his like command of materials in Antoine's work. It's really incredible.
It's amazing how he creates the appearance of human flesh with acrylic paint.
Mm-hmm. And if you come, I mean, this is why I love to come in to see work in person, and this is, you know, here we are in this world where a lot is through screens, but when you come up close to this work, there is so much incredible detail. There's thread in here, there's like bits of newsprint, and you can see writing from newspapers and different colors. You can even see some chicken wire here. So there's just kind of a lot of juicy stuff to look at visually. It's really exciting, an exciting piece. So right here on the floor, we have I think one of the more playful pieces in the show, a work by Susan Metrican. Is this one called?
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler. So it's a worm, appropriately enough, on the ground. And I think it's the artist's intention that you would actually sit on it. I'm not sure that that's happening in the gallery. But I really love Susan Metrican's work. It is very full of humor and life. There's a lot of natural imagery, and it kind of ties, I think she takes a lot of domestic objects and then also items from nature, like animals, and is kind of pulling them together, morphing them in ways that you don't always, they sneak up on you, I think. So I really love this piece. I don't know if you want to if we should talk about Susan, kind of her biography a little bit more.
Because she's a Thai American artist, correct?
Yep, she is. So her dad is Thai, and she grew up in Oklahoma, where there are, you know, like real cowboys, right? Like where she was growing up. And I believe where she grew up was pretty rural. And she was telling me about this experience in her life where she went to visit Bangkok, Thailand, as a tourist. I mean, she's an American in Thailand. And she had this funny experience of noticing these like Buddhist guys, Thai cowboys, like with sort of like wearing Buddhist symbols, but also Wranglers and like with rope. And there was this whole like genre of Thai Westerns. And so for her, she really had this flipping back on itself kind of moment where like she's a tourist in Thailand, but she's half Thai, and she's seeing this thing that could be from Oklahoma, kind of with this Buddhist interpretation. So it was kind of like this like flipping in on itself kind of a thing. And I think of her work as kind of relating to themes in that way, of like taking symbols from cultural things you see all the time, like a Western, or so lots of rope, or curtains, or jeans. She has a lot of work that has denim in it. And kind of using these symbols until they almost lose their meaning, or it disorients you.
It definitely brings a little bit more lightness to the show. A lot of the work is beautiful, but it also is heavy. It's dealing with themes of immigration and race, and misogyny, perhaps. So Susan's brings the nature and a little playfulness, which is a nice equalizer.
Absolutely, yeah.
So speaking of heavy and beautiful, we can go to another piece of Kirsten Stahle's, which is entitled Chemical Bouquet 2. Do you want to talk about the piece?
Sure. So Kirsten, we started early in the show, with the conversation between me and Kirsten. This work takes a bunch of basically the products of Monsanto or Monsanto Bayer since they merged. And it's kind of meshing them all into this really beautiful, like ornate Victorian still life, except it's actually, when you get up close, they're very meticulously put together, cut out pieces of images from catalogs and prints of the products of Bayer Monsanto. So we've got, what are the ones in this
We have like corn, soy, cottonseed, rapeseed, the plant that aspirin is derived from. We have cow udders and syringes because of hormones they create for cattle, as well as Agent Orange.
Yeah, speaking of heavy. So I really love Kirsten's work next to Antoine's work because in Antoine's work, it's sort of like taking something beautiful or, taking a human being and making it into a monster using language. Kirsten almost does the opposite, where she's taking beautiful language, but it's hiding something monstrous.
Agreed. And we'll go on to Antoine's other piece in the show.
So this is another in the Superpredator series. This is Portrait of a Superpredator who was made to believe she was cute to be dark. So it's just got that wonderful quality of his work. You can see all this detail, this writing, chicken wire, thread, lots of detail in this piece. I love the bright color.
The color is really spectacular.
Really great, yeah.
Next, we have Carly Glavinsky. She has two pieces in the show, so we'll speak about one first and then go on to the floor piece. So do you want to talk about Carly's work?
Sure. So Carly, she does a lot of very meticulous, careful work that is taking everyday objects in the world, and this piece is called Life on Earth, which is where the show title derives from. And in many ways, I think of this piece as kind of pulling the whole show together, because after all of these things happen as, life on Earth. The detail in this piece is really incredible. She's taken this book by David Attenborough, Life on Earth, and she has meticulously painted and recreated this book. And there's all these little incredible Easter egg kind of details on it. There's this little like rock crystal thing that is actually a sculpture sitting on top. There's this like wrapper or stick of gum here. And there's also, if you even look under the piece, she's sculpted and cast a piece of chewing gum, which she's stuck to the bottom of it. So
such a playful piece.
It's like really, really playful and funny. And there's also like on the top of the cover, it says as seen on TV. And then there's this like discount sticker, like it's from a bargain bin. So again, it's like, whereas in Christina's work, we're talking about like, human beings being treated like trash. She's sort of twisting that in a more playful or lighthearted way, like, it's life on Earth and it's in the bargain bin.
Perfect.
Yeah.
The other piece by Carly is On the Floor, which is I think a very stunning piece. It's beautiful, but it has there's a lot of heaviness to the backstory.
Definitely. So this piece is, it's called Pressing, and it is 22 Morning Glories and 9 Queen Anne's lace, which, just relating to the theme in this show about weeds, they are not cultivated flowers, they are technically weeds. Although again, weed is a subjective part of the
course.
Point here is that it's a subjective idea, and they're really beautiful, beautiful flowers.
Who doesn't like a morning glory?
I know.
So happy.
So there's really a lot of layers to this piece, but there was, in the summer of 2019, there were 2 shootings, and it was one in El Paso, Texas, and the other was Toledo, is that correct? And there were 22 victims in one and 9 in the other. And at that moment in the year, Carly, who lives in New Hampshire, this was what was in bloom. This is what she was seeing in her daily life as she's listening to the news of this horrific thing happening. And so it's her idea of kind of a memorial, a memento, doing something that she could do in her world relating to this larger cultural phenomenon. It takes this idea of a thing, you know, pressing flowers, and she's done it on this massive scale. So it's really, I mean, something that is so beautiful and incredible about it is just like how technically beautiful these painted pieces are. So they're painted on like Mylar, Duralar, and if you see them from far away, they look intensely photorealistic. I mean, it looks like you're looking at a photograph of pressed flowers, but when you get up close, they're kind of goopy and painty and delicious. So they're just beautifully, beautifully made, and they're really intricately cut.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, so
technically.
I really love this piece so much, and I love the symbolism, her bringing in this symbol with, again, kind of her own personal take on a thing happening out in the world.
Yeah. Okay, so now from here we're going to go talk about another piece of Susan Metricans, which are these 4 lovely, cheerful little fishes called Side Mouth.
I love this piece so much. It's like, we were talking about, she uses these symbols, kind of nature, home, back and forth. So it's got this sort of curtains, and there's grommets, kind of some kind of industrial man-made thing. But then if you kind of take a step back, they're goldfish. So I just love the playfulness of it.
I do too. And they have this lovely little red mouth underneath, which I think just adds another layer to how sweet and fun this is. And I'm sure there's some mystical thing about a goldfish, but I just don't know. But yes.
They are so fun. And then also in this configuration, I really like how they become a window.
They do become I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I like that.
And our last piece by Sachiko Akiyama is this amazing take on her migratory birds. So Hannah, if you want to talk a little bit about this wonderful work.
This piece as a whole is called The Great Migration. And it is all these different migratory birds that do not normally flock together, wouldn't be together, but they're all flying as one in a single direction around the show. So they're sort of integrated in the whole show, flying over the top of it. And I just love the symbolism of this, and to me it's a real high point in this show. Literally and figuratively, because birds, you know, they don't care what humans are calling them or what judgments are being made down here on the ground. They're just going to the place that is naturally home to them.
Yes, it is definitely uplifting.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Our last section is this way. This piece is by Leandra Lesueur.
It's one of my favorite pieces in the show. So I'm going to talk about it, and then you can say the title. Does that sound good? So this piece, Leandra made, and it stems from a story, kind of from her, a formative year of her life. There was a quote that her mother kept on the family refrigerator when she was growing up, and if you would say the title.
Sure. So the title is Be Who You Is, and the quote that was on the refrigerator is, be who you is, but not what you ain't, because if you is what you ain't, you am what you not.
So Leandra talks about how this was kind of a formative philosophy for her growing up, and she really loved it and had these warm feelings about it. And on a prompt from an English teacher when she was in the 11th grade, she was asked to bring in a quote, and they were going to do a project about a quote that everybody brought to the classroom. So Leandra brought this quote from her fridge that she'd grown up with and was beloved. And in getting to the classroom, the teacher rejected it and refused to talk about it on its merits because she deemed that it was not proper English. So I feel that this is such a powerful piece because she's kind of recontextualizing this really, really othering, awful experience and kind of turning it into a treasure box where it's a gift that people can take away.
Yes, and this piece she created almost as a community piece. It's not for sale, and it's never been for sale. And she's installed it in Brooklyn outside, and you can take the little card that has the quote on it. And same with this piece. I think it's a different iteration, but again, not for sale, but visitors are encouraged to take a card with them.
So it's really interactive because you get to walk up and kind of discover the box and take one home with you. So
just nice.
It's
Put it on
beautiful.
your fridge.
Yeah, put it on your fridge, exactly.
So we'll talk about our last piece, which is by Hannah Cole.
Yeah. So this piece is called LOL. We'll get to why. This piece is actually a piece that I made during the pandemic, not that it's over just yet. So I painted it in my tiny little laundry room. And although it doesn't have a weed in it, it has that sort of like urban quality, and it has this little element in it, this doll that's been dropped on the ground. So it does kind of, I think the doll kind of does a lot to like orient you to the fact that you're looking at the ground. And yes, in a sense it relates to, say, Christina's piece with this sort of thing that's been like discarded or sort of treated badly, fallen to the ground and is being walked over. But I do have a little more kind of hopeful insider quality to it, where this doll in particular is an LOL doll. It's a kind of doll that's popular. If you have a young daughter, as I do, then you know about LOLs. And my daughter picked this piece out. So she sort of considers this to be her painting. And that is not a disregarded or overlooked object. That is an object of supreme importance. And so to me, there's like kind of, although it's this like, you know, doll of color kind of dropped on the ground, actually in our household, and you know, my youngest has this deep, cherished relationship with it. And so it's sort of, to me, got this little hopeful side of like the next generation and what they can do.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us on this walkthrough. Everything in the show you can find on our website. Most of it is for sale with prices ranging from $400 to $24,000. You can also give us a call or shoot us an email for more information. Thank you.